Okay, guys, so there's some position groups that Auburn has not done a overly stellar job of recruiting at. And one of those positions, well, two of them, is obviously the offensive line, as Auburn is seeking to piece together the offensive line for 2020 football season, and also continuing to have to piece together the cornerback position. Because if you look back after the Carlton Davis era at Auburn, even then the cornerback position wasn't like absolutely solid. But ever since, Auburn has been piecing together the cornerback position mainly because of a couple of reasons. If you look back to subsequent recruiting classes, Auburn actually has some decent guys in the secondary. The only issue was that the guys either one just didn't pan out, wound up transferring, just didn't work out. They had a couple of guys in the mid 4-star range that could have been serviceable at the cornerback position or maybe even the safety position, but it just didn't work out. So we look back to 2018, the beginning of that particular season, things started to get really scary for the Tigers at the cornerback position. So much so, wide receiver at the time, Noah Igbinoghene, winds up making a position change. And I had just began my YouTube channel, and I'm like, ugh, how is this going to work? One, I thought about the fact that in the SEC, you have those onslaught of receivers at the University of Alabama. Georgia was actually pretty good. Ole Miss was actually really good at the time. And I'm like, okay, so now you have a wide receiver who is transferring over as a cornerback and is going to transfer over as the field cornerback. Most of you guys know the field cornerback is usually your shutdown cornerback. He shuts down his entire side of the field, so they have to throw it to the other side. So I'm like, okay, Auburn is in deep trouble. So now let's scale back our expectations of this particular season, because you're piecing together one of the most important parts of the defense in the SEC and in Power 5 football is you got to have a good cornerback. You have to have a solid cornerback, and preferably you either need an experienced cornerback or a cornerback who has been groomed to do so for a long period of time. And transferring over from a wide receiver to a cornerback in Power 5 football is not only somewhat unreasonable, but it's not a situation that you want to get yourself into because of the talent that you're going to be facing that has the upper hand on you in that particular position. Luckily, Auburn was able to dodge that particular bullet, and Noah Igbinoghene did pretty well. Actually, a matter of fact, one of his biggest interceptions, maybe his only interception of the year, came in the salvation of the Texas A&M game. If Auburn would have lost that game, you might not even be talking Gus Malzahn period anymore, because Auburn in that particular game was in the middle of probably one of the most cyclical declines in Gus Malzahn's career. And it looked as if he was going to hit the brick wall, just like all of the other coaches in their final years of their tenures at Auburn. They usually have a season where the team completely collapses, everybody gives up on them, and it just looks absolutely terrible. But Noah Igbinoghene makes that key interception to salvage that particular season, because now that you look at it, if Auburn loses to Texas A&M, more than likely they still would have lost to Georgia, still definitely would have lost to Alabama. You're talking about a 6-6 season. Bad, I tell you. 7-5 was not great, but considering all things, 7-5, winning the bowl game, 8-5, giving a little promise to go into the 2019 season, that's what you needed, because otherwise it wasn't looking very good for Gus Malzahn. I think buyout options were going to be looked at if Auburn would have lost that game to Texas A&M, because it would have been at the heels of a very bad decline, especially on defense, where the defense was giving up over 400 yards a game, over 30 points per game. It just wasn't looking good. Now, fast forward to 2021 recruiting class. There's a very talented kid in the state of Alabama one of the top recruits, maybe, depending on what poll you look at, maybe the top recruit in the state of Alabama. At cornerback, he's a 5-star recruit out of Pinson Valley High School. Familiar territory for Auburn. Auburn got Bo Nix, and also former Auburn quarterback Patrick Nix was the coach of these kids for most of their success, the successful version of their tenure. GaQuincy McKinstry. They call him Kool-Aid. He is a cornerback, one of the top in the country, very coveted cornerback at this point, a proven winner. He was on that 2017-2018 state champion football team out of Pinson Valley. Also, not a bad basketball player. For a guy that's 5'11 and a half, I think I'll go ahead and give him the 6 feet, the inch and a half to get him 6 feet. This guy plays above the rim. I've seen several pictures of this young man where he's actually dunking on people. Like, he has very, very elite athleticism. Kind of reminds me of Nick Marshall's athleticism, as Nick Marshall was a little bit taller, but a great football player and a great basketball player nonetheless. Kool-Aid wants to play basketball and football. That's why I think it's a possibility that Auburn could be a very attractive deal for him. Auburn is on the upswing when it comes to basketball, with Bruce Pearl taking his teams to the national tournament, winning consecutive SEC championships in some form, whether it's the tournament or the actual SEC championship game in basketball, taking his team at least to the second rounds. I think, that could be a good thing for him. Also, you talk about immediate playing time. He does not have to fight. He does not have to claw at Auburn for any type of playing time, because you're going to be looking at an immediate impact player. Auburn has not recruited an elite cornerback since I can remember. And you can dig it up. Any of you fans can dig it up since you can remember either. So I think that could be the key. Auburn can offer him immediate playing time. Auburn can offer him the possibility of playing basketball as well. I think his skill set is phenomenal. He's not particularly fast, but he's such a cerebral football player. It more than makes up for his, somewhat lack of 40-time speed. He plays wide receiver as well, so he knows that position. Very instinctive. You catch him looking at the eyes of the quarterback, and he plays more so of the ball than the actual player, which could make him a very elite football player in the SEC. All right, guys, go ahead and like the video. I just thought about it. One of my fans was like, how are you going to like the video if you haven't heard it? Well, you do whatever you want to do. You can like it, dislike it. I don't care what you do. I do want you to leave a comment in the comment section to let me know what you think about GaQuincy McKinstry. I call him Kool-Aid because I just don't want to get tongue-tied trying to say his name. Go ahead and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. I am your host, Kennard Vernon Stewart. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger. War damn Eagle.